Pop music has always been a shapeshifter. Over the decades, it's borrowed, blended, and reimagined sounds from every corner of the musical map, constantly evolving to reflect the moment. From disco fever in the 70s to hip-hop's reign in the 2000s, pop's ability to absorb other genres has kept it fresh and unpredictable. But in 2024, something unexpected happened. Pop went country. Major artists like Beyonce, Post Malone, and Lana Del Rey aren't just dipping their toes into country sounds, they're diving headfirst. Of course, there's Beyonce's incredibly popular Cowboy Carter and Post Malone's F1 Trillion. And most recently, we have seen the rising superstar Chappell Roan also going down the country road. This is all happening at the perfect time, too. Audiences are craving more authenticity, and country music's raw emotional pull feels like a natural fit. But let's be real, there's definitely more than just creative inspiration behind this. Country has one of the most loyal fan bases, and some of the steadiest sales in the entire music industry. So how much of this shift is genuine artistry, and how much is a calculated move to tap into that big money? We're gonna dive into this pop country crossover, why it's happening, and where it might take us next. Country music has always had a way of sticking around. While pop music often chases the next big thing, country thrives on consistency with deeply rooted traditions and a fan base that stays loyal. According to the Country Music Association, country music now reaches 139 million listeners in the US, and nearly half of those fans describe themselves as devoted to the genre. Even during challenging years like 2020, country music held strong, claiming almost 15% of total music sales and streams. That kind of stability makes it an ideal genre for artists looking to explore deeper storytelling or connect with an audience that values authenticity. A little bit of a spoiler here, but it's also very appealing to record labels. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter is the centerpiece of the pop transition to country table, the locomotive trudging the mainstream into country town. As I mentioned, Post Malone also dropped F1 Trillion and really leaned into the Texas sound he grew up with. He didn't try to reinvent the wheel. He wasn't trying to reinvent the genre. He wanted to celebrate country music and did so by embracing its foundation. Before we can fully understand why mainstream pop artists are shifting towards country, we need to look at the country stars who crossed over into pop long before them. The idea of blending genres didn't happen overnight. Country artists spent decades proving that their music had a place far beyond Nashville. Patsy Cline, Glenn Campbell, and John Denver found success on the Billboard Hot 100, showing country's mainstream potential. Dolly Parton, of course, took it further with Here You Come Again and 9 to 5, dominating both pop and country charts, while her film and TV success expanded country's cultural presence. Kenny Rogers took it even further with Lady bridging country, pop, and R&B. By the 90s, crossover success became undeniable. Shania Twain's Come On Over became the best-selling country album ever, with You're Still the One and That Don't Impress Me Much dominating pop radio and MTV, introducing country to a global audience, a young global audience. Faith Hill's Breathe also took over the airwaves, proving that country ballads could compete with mainstream pop anthems. And by the 2000s, Taylor Swift's Fearless really solidified country's place in the teen pop boom, with A Love Story and You Belong With Me becoming massive hits that reshaped country's image for a new generation. These moments signaled that country music had fully integrated into mainstream pop culture. The 2010s continued the trend with Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour winning Album of the Year at the Grammys, Florida Georgia Line collaborating with pop and hip-hop artists, and Maren Morris breaking through with The Middle. The crossover pipeline isn't a one-way street anymore. What once led artists from Nashville to pop stardom now runs in both directions. And here we find ourselves. The lines between country and other genres have only continued to blur, with artists from outside the genre making their own mark on country music, rather than just borrowing from it. Beyoncé and Post Malone's country albums show that country's evolution isn't dictated by tradition alone, but by the artists willing to push its boundaries. And this has brought the two great success. Cowboy Carter sold over 400,000 units in its first week, making it the biggest debut of 2024, and it also went on to win Best Country Album and Best Album at the Grammys. Post Malone's F1 Trillion debuted with 250,000 album equivalent units in the US, including 80,000 in pure album sales. And that was the second largest week for any country album in 2024. But honestly, what makes F1 Trillion and Cowboy Carter stand out, at least to me, are the collaborations. These are hardcore co-signs from country music royalty, as well as the new wave of stars who are redefining the genre.
F1 Trillion has 18 songs, and I believe 15 of those have features. Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter has 11 songs with features, and some icons like Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson had features on 2 songs.
They had a ton of support, and Post Malone is actually featured on Cowboy Carter as well. The biggest cosign, in my opinion, was from the queen herself, Miss Dolly Parton, and she did features on both albums. Then you've got artists like Morgan Wallen and Shaboozey jumping in, who really represent the modern day country sound. Let me talk to you about these two young bucks for a minute. Let's start with Morgan Wallen. This motherfucker, with the voice of a pack of Marlboro Lights a day angel, has the #1 album of the 21st century, according to Billboard. They use their own chart for reference. Not only does Morgan Wallen have the #1 spot with the Dangerous Double album, his other album, One Thing at a Time, holds the #6 spot on this list. And Shaboozey, this guy, this superstar, put out a little ditty bop you may have heard 19 times during your morning commute, a bar song Tipsy. The hit is certified 6 times platinum and holds the record for the longest running #1 on the Billboard Hot 100s by a solo artist. It also topped the Billboard Hot Country Songs, Country Airplay, and Media Base charts, making him the first artist to dominate all 4 key airplay charts: country, pop, adult pop, and rhythmic. On top of that, he's the first black male artist to reach #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the Country Songs charts. The momentum continued with 6 Grammy nominations in 2025, including the coveted Best New Artist Award. It's safe to say that Shaboozey is rewriting the rules for what a crossover star can be. There are obviously tons of very talented rising country stars. I'm just honing in on the artists that were featured on these mainstream pop artist albums. Switching gears back to a mainstream pop artist, Lana Del Rey. She's already had the Americana country vibe with quite a few songs over the years, in my opinion, especially on Blue Banisters, which she released all the way back in 2021. Now, Lana has confirmed she is dropping a country album in May, I believe. She previously stated the album's name would be Lasso, but more recently she claims the album title will be The Right Person Will Stay, and she clarified that it will still be country, and I'm sure she will add her own haunting, poetic Lana vibe to it. According to Whiskey Riff, Lana said at an unspecified event, quote, "If you can't already tell by our award winners and our performers, the music business is going country. We're going country, it's happening," unquote. Which I thought was a really simple but perfect quote to have in this video.
And what can you tell us about Lasso coming out later this year? You've gone country, right?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, what can I say now? When I gave Jack Antonoff his award for Best Producer of the Year, and I said, I said, welcome Nashville to Hollywood, and Hollywood welcome Nashville, because the music business is gone country. And it went silent. 5,000 people, dead silence. And then the next week, we had 3 major artists announce big country albums. So where is Lasso going? I really have no idea now.
Circling back to current it girl Chappell Roan, who just released her country single, The Giver.
This shook things up quite a bit because if you don't know, Miss Roan is all about bold, unapologetic queer representation. And bringing that to a genre that is usually all about straight white male perspectives is pretty cool.
I think I have a special relationship to where I'm from because of country music. Yeah. And so to kind of honor that part of myself by making a country song where it's like, you know what? Yes, I'm gay. And yes, I am ultra pop. Yes, I am a drag queen. That can also be, you can also perform a country song. There's a lot of country artists who are not out, and they will never come out because of the stigma. Let's not cut off like the fans that are gay and love country. Yeah. Like, let's not forget about who's buying your tickets. Country can exist in a queer space, and a queer space can exist in a country space. Like, I'm singing country, and these girls who have never left Brooklyn are screaming, I need to die.
She didn't even just give a new perspective, she challenged the existing one. Here are some standout lines from The Giver. Girl, I don't need no lifted truck revving loud to pick you up, 'cause how I look is how I touch. And in this strip mall town of dreams, good luck finding a man who has the means to rhinestone cowgirl all night long. Pop music doesn't shift direction out of nowhere. There is always a reason. The move toward country in 2024 isn't just a random creative pivot. It's a response to changing audience demands, shifting cultural trends, and most importantly, a financial calculation by the industry. So no, the shift didn't happen because the artists woke up one day and decided to throw on cowboy boots. It's a strategic response to what audiences are gravitating toward, and more importantly, what labels see as the safest bet for continued profit. Country music isn't afraid to get vulnerable. Whether it's heartbreak, hope, or drinking away your problems, the genre speaks to life's highs and lows in a way that really resonates right now. A study by the Country Music Association even found that 72% of country fans said they connect with the genre because of its storytelling and emotional pull. So it's basically a musical antidote to the overly polished pop songs we've grown used to. And then there's the nostalgia. From TV reboots to fashion trends, we're all clinging to the past a little bit, and country music really taps into that. Across the genre, there's this sort of rootsy sound, and the themes are timeless. That combination for many people make country music feel like home, even for listeners that didn't grow up on it. In an era obsessed with throwbacks, country feels both fresh and familiar, which makes it the perfect genre for pop artists to explore. The rise of the country-fication of pop music isn't just about changing tastes, it's also about how music is consumed. Platforms like Spotify and Apple Music have transformed the way we listen, making genre lines blurrier than ever. Algorithms are starting to recommend songs based on vibes, themes, and moods rather than rigid labels. This means a country song with pop-friendly production can seamlessly land in the same playlist as a top 40 hit, exposing it to millions of new listeners. And it's no coincidence that country pop crossovers like Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour or Lil Nas X's Old Town Road exploded during this era. They were tailor-made for a generation that loves genre blending, proving that country music doesn't have to stay confined to country radio. It can thrive anywhere. And speaking of Old Town Road, let's talk about what that moment really meant. Back in 2019, Old Town Road was a cultural phenomenon. You were there, you know. The song topped the Billboard Hot 100 for a record-breaking 19 weeks, blending country twang with trap beats and proving that genre boundaries were meant to be broken. But it also exposed deep tensions within country music. Specifically, it raised a bigger question. Who gets to be considered authentic in country music and who gets pushed out? That question, what defines country music as authentic, brings us to Beyoncé, specifically her 2016 CMA performance. Her and the Chicks collaborated on her song Daddy Lessons, and it was met with significant backlash, with country music fans and even some country music artists deeming it inappropriate. Her presence was inappropriate for the genre. Okay, let's dissect this a bit. What was their reason for thinking that? Well, they argued that a mainstream pop artist had no place on the CMA stage, as it threatened the genre's authenticity. Country music, after all, prides itself on its roots, its cultural identity, and its storytelling. To many people, Beyoncé's performance felt like an outsider infringing on their space. I am not even gonna tackle the origins of country music. I'm gonna throw up a few videos here from creators that would do so much more eloquently than I, that have much more knowledge on the subject. I'm just gonna stay in my lane and focus on my topic because I can rabbit hole and you know I can make a video 2 hours long. But I will link some of those videos below if you're interested in checking that out. So, Beyoncé infringing on their genre, infringing on their space because she's a mainstream pop artist felt disrespectful because she was a mainstream pop artist that felt inauthentic? Is that where I was? Yeah, that is the claim. Now, is that the full story? We're gonna take another deep breath here. While the criticism pointed to concerns about genre purity, it is worth asking why Justin Timberlake, who performed with Chris Stapleton in 2015, did not receive the same backlash. He is always just sliding around backlash, that Justin Timberlake, I'll tell you. Justin Timberlake, if you did not know, like Beyoncé, is not a country artist. He is a very, very mainstream pop artist. Yet his performance, by all accounts, was well received. This disparity raises the very uncomfortable possibility that the backlash Beyoncé faced was about more than genre purity concerns. I wanted to look at this situation very fairly because I understand how certain genres are very protective of their genre. They can be a little gatekeepy, and I do understand why when it comes to protecting the art. So for the sake of fairness, I looked back at every live performance on the CMAs for the last 25 years, which was quite a difficult task, and I wasn't sure what I would find, but I certainly was not ready for what I did find. Let's start in 2005. Jon Bon Jovi, a rock artist. I guess he had a country version of his song Who Says You Can't Go Home. Fine, whatever, we'll give him a pass. He threw out a country song. Sure. Yeah, Jon Bon Jovi's country. We're being really generous here. In 2009, things got a little crazy when Dave Matthews from the Dave Matthews Band and Daughtry performed. Dave Matthews, to be fair, is like a musical genre wizard. He can fit anywhere really, and he did have a song with Kenny Chesney at the time, so we'll give him a pass. Daughtry, however, Daughtry is baby Nickelback. I can't be generous with that. They had no country song at the time that I was aware of, and they performed in 2009. And both of their performances were alongside a country music powerhouse like Kenny Chesney with Dave Matthews, like I mentioned. In 2010, there were no pop artists on stage, but Miss Reba McEntire, Miss Single Mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids and never stops, sang a cover of Beyonce's If I Were a Boy. In 2011, Rascal Flatts was joined by British pop star, is this on? A British pop star, Natasha Bedingfield. British pop star, country music. I believe they also had a song together. Again, we'll be generous and we will call British pop star Natasha Bedingfield a country music star. That same year, Kenny Chesney and Grace Potter from Grace Potter and the Nocturnals performed. They are a rock band. Kelly Clarkson and Vince Gill performed the following year together. Kelly Clarkson, sure, we'll throw her in the country music category as well. In 2014, Little Big Town performed with Ariana Grande, like the pop star. Not even a hint of country, not a sprinkle of country. Her most country song is Pete fucking Davidson off Sweetener. Oh, but wait, the year gets gets even worse as far as infringement on a genre. Miranda Lambert, one of my favorite singers of all time, performed All About That Bass with Meghan Trainor. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? I'm not even done. In 2015, Thomas Rhett and Fall Out Boy performed Uma Thurman and some other song. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't have words. This brings us to 2016, where Beyonce performed Daddy Lessons with the Chicks. Knowing all of that information, following that timeline of artists that have performed with country music powerhouses, does Beyonce really feel out of place? Does she feel more out of place than Fall Out Boy? Are the lyrics to Daddy Lessons less country than All About That Bass? Daddy liked his whiskey with his tea, and we rode motorcycles blackjack, classic vinyl tough girl is what I had to be. He said, take care of your mother, watch out for your sister. With his head held high, he told me not to cry. Oh, my daddy said shoot with his right hand on his rifle. He swore it on the Bible. That's a country song. Do you see what I mean? What are we talking about? I just want people to stay consistent. I got a little worked up there. I apologize. I got very passionate when researching this and realizing that it seemed to be a lot of bullshit in more ways than one. You cannot claim it's all about genre purity and authenticity. And I want to take that a step further, because is a country music award show really all that authentic to begin with? Ever? Is any award show? Probably not. They probably won't ever be authentic. So let's talk about the concept of authenticity itself. As I mentioned earlier, this is something I believe in, and I believe most country music fans agree, that authenticity is what sets the genre apart. But I had to ask myself, is this industry really that authentic at all? Take a shot every time I say authentic. The reality is, the music industry doesn't just go with the flow. It makes the flow. If country music is the direction pop stars are headed, it's because record labels have done the math and decided this is where the big money is. These guys aren't sentimental. They don't pivot artists towards a genre out of respect for its storytelling roots. They do it because they see dollar signs. I mentioned earlier in the video that most major record labels own both pop and country divisions. Universal Music Group manages both Post Malone's label, Republic Records, and Capitol Records Nashville, home to country superstar Luke Bryan. Likewise, Sony Music oversees Beyonce's label Columbia Records, as well as Sony Music Nashville, where Kane Brown is signed. I'm gonna state the obvious here, but this setup isn't just a coincidence, it's a calculated advantage. Labels don't need to take huge risks introducing pop stars to a completely foreign market. They already own the infrastructure, the producers, the radio connections, and the industry relationships to make it happen.
Here's my thought, and maybe it's a bit wild, but when country music started surging in popularity, labels saw a huge opportunity.
Why not reposition some of their biggest pop stars as crossover successes and double dip into both markets? With country's reputation for steady sales, high-grossing tours, and a fiercely loyal audience, tapping into this fan base was a business no-brainer. But even when the numbers line up, audiences need a reason to believe the transition is real. That's where carefully crafted narratives come in. Beyonce and Post Malone's Texas roots, that's a great story. Their previously stated love for country music, that I'm sure is authentic by the way, even better. All of these things are true, but they also happen to fit perfectly into what labels needed to make the transition feel authentic. Again, none of this is to say Beyonce or Post Malone are faking their love and passion for country music, but it's hard to ignore how perfectly aligned their backgrounds are with what labels needed to make this trend resonate. It's entirely plausible that these narratives were amplified, repackaged, and marketed strategically to drive crossover success. And this isn't the first time the industry has pulled this move either. We know pop artists jumping on a hot genre for commercial success isn't new. In the early 2000s, when hip-hop was dominating the charts, pop stars started borrowing from its sound and aesthetic. Gwen Stefani's Holla Back Girl and Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back. Both of those had heavy hip-hop production, the latter drenched in Timbaland's signature beats. Then came the EDM explosion of the late 2010s, and suddenly pop artists were riding the electronic wave. Rihanna's We Found Love was built around a Calvin Harris beat. Coldplay teamed up with the Chainsmokers on something just like this, blending their stadium rock aesthetic with EDM's festival energy. Once again, the pattern repeated itself.
Now that we are in the 2020s, country is having its moment, and record labels are running the same playbook, hopping on this latest trend.
For me, this raises an even bigger question on top of all the other questions I've raised so far. Is jumping on a trend inherently bad? Or is it just part of the natural evolution of music? Think about fashion. People wear what's in all the time. Sometimes that means following trends, and sometimes it means discovering something new within that trend. In music, though, this kind of shift carries a different weight. Fans value originality, and they see artists as trendsetters, not followers. So when an artist suddenly pivots genres, there's always a risk that it looks like a business decision first and an artistic one second. At the same time, music is meant to evolve. Artists have always borrowed, blended, and experimented with different sounds. Some of the most groundbreaking music of all time came from genre fusing. Rock borrowing from blues, hip-hop sampling jazz, electronic music pulling from disco. So the real question isn't whether following a trend is good or bad, it's how well it's done and whether audiences buy into it. We are now in a hyper-skeptical environment where everyone is an industry plant. Audiences are really quick to look into someone's background to assess their legitimacy. I am not an expert, but I'm sure this scrutiny has made record labels and marketing teams adjust accordingly. And when it comes to pop artists entering the country space, I am sure labels make it a priority to ensure that the transition feels believable. And I'm not saying that all of these shifts are disingenuous. Artists don't exist in a vacuum, and many artists, I'm sure, are genuinely inspired by various genres. The line between authentic evolution and calculated strategy is often blurred, leaving us to wonder, can these two things be true at the same time? So what does all this mean for country music, for pop music? Are the pop artists swapping out their glitz for just a moment in the mud? Or is this honky-tonk transformation here for the long haul? The thing is, trends don't stick around if they're not working. And my trick to everything, really, in life, when I want to know an answer to something, is follow the money trail. And let me tell you something about the music industry that you probably already know. They don't play with their money, and they don't invest in what they believe will be one-hit wonders. That's not their game. If they're pouring money into pop country projects, they likely see long-term potential. So as a non-expert, I do believe we will be seeing more of this shift, especially, and I know this sounds eye-rolly, but let's not forget how big this woman is, Taylor Swift, releasing her Taylor's version of her self-titled this year, probably by the end of this year. And I know you might be thinking, really, you think that Taylor Swift is going to carry this trend? Yes, I do. I do believe that she is going to maybe not carry the trend, but extend the trend. I believe the pop to country transition would have probably ended by the fall of 2025. And thinking logically, I feel like she'll put out her self-titled at the end of the year and make it a huge deal because it does deserve that. And this self-titled is a huge country album. On top of that, this woman boosted the entire fucking economy with her Eras tour. So let's not, discredit the power she has on the music industry, on any industry. Whether you love her, hate her, or don't give a shit about her, you cannot deny that she can pile drive this trend forward. So to answer the question, is the honky-tonk revolution here to stay? Obviously, I can't give a clear answer, but I think so. All signs that I can read point to this being a very very long phase. Country music's audience is growing, genre blending is thriving, the industry is leaning into these crossovers, music and artists are more diverse across the board, which invites more audiences to engage in spaces they normally wouldn't. Add that to the creative opportunity artists have to reinvent themselves, and Taylor Swift back in rhinestone cowboy boots and prom night curls, and you have got a recipe for pop country staying power in 2025. Country music isn't just growing, it's stretching, shifting, and reshaping itself in ways we haven't seen before. And if you'll allow me to be just a little poetic, I see it as a big old tree. Its roots run deep, those roots being the pioneers who built the foundation. The trunk stands tall, that trunk being the legends who solidified country as a powerhouse. And now, the branches are reaching in every direction, with new artists pushing the genre into fresh, unexpected territory. And that's what music is supposed to do. Expand, evolve, and challenge expectations while staying connected to the foundation that made it strong in the first place. Whether this shift is driven by artistic passion or industry calculation, one thing is very clear. Country music is more wide-reaching and inclusive than ever. What may have started as a strategic move for some has opened real opportunities for artists to experiment, reinvent themselves, and introduce new perspectives into a genre known for tradition, or at least the illusion of tradition. Of course, not everyone is on board. Some don't like the branches growing, and they will resist change, hoping to preserve country in its purest form. But I do not think they're the majority, even if they seem to be the loudest. Plenty of country fans are excited to see the genre getting its flowers and being explored in bold, unexpected ways. Truthfully, I believe people are caring less and less about labels. The lines between pop, country, and everything in between have been blurred beyond recognition at this point. Listeners aren't hung up on what belongs where anymore, because at the end of the day, genres aren't walls, they're doors. And right now, those doors are wide open, and they're not closing anytime soon.